back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. We are back in the Phoenix pub on Oxford Circus. Normal service is resumed in setting and lineup today. Nice new jacket?
No, I've had this since I got married.
Have you?
Yes.
For years. How about you? New pair of trousers on today? PSG tracksuit bottoms, I noticed.
Dug these out of the wardrobe. It's cold, so I'm keeping this little cord number on.
It is freezing, man.
Vintage number from you?
Yes, very old.
This is
I've
like
worn
a
it
new
a few
bit.
times. I've worn it a few times on Sunday Vibes.
Isn't it? We keep observing each of his outfits before we start.
I
It's because we
enjoy
have to
it.
do small talk and Joe kind of looks around. He's like,
Yeah, what can I pick out
what can I talk about here? What you're wearing? Okay.
You know, we
yeah.
do the chapters in the description, like 0 to 30 seconds. Small talk.
Clothing change. yeah, literally. Enough small talk then. Let's crack on with the football talk, shall we? Because today we're looking at one January transfer your club still needs to make. Now, by the time this video goes out, there's going to be but hours left in the market, really, isn't there? So teams will be scrambling and scratching around close to deadline day. By the way, on deadline day, we are going to be doing loads of videos, loads of content, and a live stream. So make sure you tune in for a very special Football Daily deadline day. Shall we start then in any particular place that you two want to throw up early doors? Hamster, got any suggestions you bring to the table?
Yeah, I thought before we moved on to anything club specific, we could actually just have a look, a bit of a snapshot at the window in general, because it does paint a pretty staggering picture, doesn't it? The Premier League spend versus everybody else's spend. So Chelsea have spent 160 mil in the winter window, and that's more than all the teams in Serie A, Liga, and the Bundesliga combined. The Serie A have spent the least out of those leagues. You're itching to say something, itching to dig them out. Spending just £9.6 million, the Italian top flight. Only Udinese and Spezia have bought players over £1 million. Okay. Conversely, the Premier League could break its record spend from the 2017-18 season.
It will.
When clubs combined to spend almost 500 mil. I think it's 361 spent so far. But Chelsea are very willing to drop another 100 on Caicedo, on Gusto. There's loads of transfers in the offing like we're going to discuss. So mental.
English Super League.
English football is about to break another record and everyone else is counting the pennies.
I know.
So good luck to Doogie and Co. on the Continental Club trying to talk about European leagues in this window.
It's a bit of a sad state of affairs.
It
I have
is.
To say. It's a bit of a sad state of affairs.
It doesn't sit well with me at all.
When I'm seeing, Zaniolo pick between two black and red kits and one's AC Milan, one's Bournemouth. Like, it don't sit particularly well. Keylor Navas potentially going to Forest.
Italian football's only got itself to blame for most of that, right? Like, I mean, one of the reasons that we're not seeing much spending out of Italy right now is because some of the clubs we might historically have seen spend are maybe in a little bit of trouble right now.
Juventus,
Maybe it turns out that actually they were saying this is how much money we've got, and actually it was a different number, but both of those numbers were found in the same book side by side, which was maybe not the best bit of criminal conspiracy work. I don't know, I kind of love it. I think Bournemouth beating Milan for Zaniolo is extremely funny, and I'm completely here for it, so not bothered.
I mean, we're going to come on to talk about Zaniolo a little bit later, aren't we? So we'll come back to that one. We have had some suggestions sent in as well, so we should rattle off some of those from you guys at home. If you want to be involved in Sunday Vibes, of course, Hamster usually puts a tweet out during the week that you can reply to. We'll be starting with Shaddai, who wants to talk to us about Leicester City, because they are desperately in need of a right winger, aren't they still?
Still, 3 or 4 years later. Yeah, we're going to do some scenarios and some player-specific ones using people's suggestions. I thought we've not spoken about Leicester in any depth in a while because they've been very quiet in the transfer market. They've been middling to poor in most of their performances in the Premier League, so no real reason to delve into Leicester until linked with Jack Harrison.
What's happened there?
In the last 24 hours, which is a little bit bizarre because, of course, they turned down the opportunity to sign Ademola Lookman for £14 million in the summer. Although I think Rodgers wanted him, but then maybe the owners were like, well, that would be the majority of your budget. So there was a bit of umming and ahhing.
Of classic Brendan Rodgers briefing where he's like, oh, I actually wanted that player who turned out to be great, even though Brendan Rodgers' instincts in the transfer market are maybe the worst in world football.
And we'll come on to that in good time. But yeah, he's obviously taken off at Atalanta now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I'm not saying he'd put those numbers up at Leicester right now, but when he was at Leicester, I think it was 6 goals and 16 Premier League starts, a very useful rotation option. And they could definitely use that right now.
Than Dennis Pratt.
I mean, their recruitment on the winger front has been horrible over the last 3 or 4 years. And we can start with Moises Perez because he was bought for £30 million in 2019-20, the third highest record fee paid by Leicester for an incoming transfer. First season, okay, 12 goals and assists and 26 starts, but it very quickly became a bit part player, didn't he? 47 league appearances in the last 3 seasons, only 24 of them starts, 9 goals and assists in that period. And now, I mean, not even now, in the last 18 months, usurped by Mark O'Brien, who was brought in as an unfancied free transfer in the 2014-15 season. And Mark O'Brien, let's put some respect on his name, a league title winner.
Yeah.
A decent utility player, and seems like a very decent guy, but in the bottom 1% for non-penalty XG, shots, touches inside the opposition's box, pass completion, progressive passes received. That can't happen for a team that have even, top half ambitions. Like, this guy shouldn't be seeing starts, getting minutes. And Dennis Pratt,
he's not a winger though.
He's been playing right wing when Leicester have lined up in a 4-1,
which says a lot. Okay.
In a 4-1-4-1, and it is even worse. His output's even worse than Mark O'Brien.
He cost 18 mil, by the way.
He cost 18 mil from Sampdoria. No, so that's the best part of £50 million on 2 wide cam options, let's say. None of them have worked out. He's only played 2,200 league minutes in 4 seasons for Leicester. That's £8,200 a minute. Bang average in Serie A as well. He's done nothing since he left the Jupiler Pro. I mean, you look at his F-breath, it's a shocking state of affairs. And, we don't judge players solely on the FB ref, but wow. So Leicester are now in a position where they can't get any money back for these players. They've not got a huge budget to operate with. And they might buy Jack Harrison, who exclusively plays on the left, where Harvey Barnes also exclusively plays. So it doesn't really make sense to me, despite quite liking the player.
And they're going to have to buy a central midfielder in the summer when Tielemans goes on a free.
And they're going to have to buy attacking mid when Maddison goes, because there's absolutely no way Maddison stays beyond this summer with clubs like Newcastle.
What's the contract situation?
I think he's under contract to 2024.
Yeah.
So he will have.
They got a year.
Yeah, but I think
so they're gonna
maybe
have to
2
sell.
years.
But
One or 2 years. But
what's convincing
if it's
him
2 years, you keep him.
What's convincing him to stay or not force a move right now?
Well, it's the fact that players can't force moves. Like, I mean, we always talk about players forcing moves, but they literally can't do it. Like, I mean, the thing is, if he's got 2 years on his contract, they can sell him for a premium now, but I don't know if that premium's there because I don't know if anybody bar Newcastle is going to come in with a big fee for him. And if you've got to do this amount of work around the squad, I think you've just got to say to him, like, you go next year. That's the way it is. He's got a contract, tough shit. Like, the Tielemans thing is a bigger issue and this wing situation. But this wing situation has been dragging on forever and they've never solved it. And they buy forwards. And even when they've got good forwards, like, I still think there's a good player in Daka. There's clearly a good player in Kelechi and Nacho. These guys just don't play. Even when Lookman was there last season, was he right?
Yeah.
On loan. Didn't
with
really
the
play that
option
much.
to buy as well, 14 mil, something.
Yeah.
Didn't really play very much. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, Brendan Rodgers wanted him now. It's like, well, we should play him more last season.
I do have very little sympathy for them. And they have had injury woes. And Maddison, when he's been fit, has played on the right-hand side as well in a 4-1-4-1. And his output has been fine there. So Brendan Rodgers found a way to remedy a problem that he and his transfer committee created by continuously signing players that don't really fit the profile of a right winger. Like, Moises Perez was great as a second striker for Newcastle, wasn't he? Never been an outstanding creator in the Premier League
Perez
either.
even then.
He was playing off Salomon Rondon, looked really good. Leicester brought him in, knowing full well that Maddison was probably going to operate in that 10 space. That Vardy wasn't really the profile of striker that a second striker plays off, so to speak. So he's always been earmarked for that right wing role while being a terrible creator, and it's worked out terribly.
And I have to say, like, even forgetting the midfield and the forwards, centre-backs need urgent cover and assistance, signings-wise. I think they probably need a goalkeeper. Like, Danny Ward's done okay at times, but there's definitely an upgradable area, isn't it?
I don't want to say anything about that.
Do you know, like, this squad is in drastic need of mass surgery, and I think we should talk about Jack Harrison because we are talking about transfers, and he has been heavily linked. And do you know what? I think this would be one of the most bizarre moves of the window. If Jack Harrison goes to Leicester, number one, he doesn't want to play right wing. He's consistently played left wing. His output's been pretty decent, at Leeds. I think it was 8 goals, 8 assists first season, 5 goals, 8 assists second season. He's put up 5 goal involvements already this season. Absolutely fine. He started 15 games under Jesse Marsch this season in a team that are absolutely in a relegation battle. Why on earth Leeds would let him go is beyond me. I know that he's been usurped by Wilfried Gnonto, but it's still depth. He doesn't fit Leicester's style of play. I think from every angle, it makes no sense. I don't understand it to any level. And at 30 million quid, it's not an insubstantial amount of money.
I don't mind him for Leicester, and if Leicester are prepared to pay a premium for him, Leeds would probably deal at 30 to 35.
Yeah.
That covers the route of transfer. Like you said, they bought in Gnonto for cheap. I don't know who would be his understudy if Harrison left.
Just sign a right winger though. They've let Gelhardt go as well to Sunderland.
On loan, right? Yeah.
Crescencio, Somerville, and Gnonto,
but
and all these kind of guys who are a bit unproven.
Yes, exactly. But it just feels like Leicester are throwing money at the wrong position, the wrong profile of player, when they could probably do with highlighting or addressing the issues you've highlighted. Sorry. Can we think of any right wingers that would prefer to Jack Harrison?
It's a difficult market to find them in, isn't it? Especially in the January window, where like some of the more attacking talents are going to be held because they want to be sold in the summer for a premium. Basically, I think that the right wing market is a really difficult.
You've got to say, a homegrown player at that price point with a proven record in the Premier League, it's not a terrible price. Like the questions
want to play on the right.
Yeah, the questions of fit a bit. Well, who knows? Maybe Leicester have spoken to him and he's actually happy to play on the right. But yeah, I agree, it's not a perfect fit. On the other hand, anybody else you can get for about this price is not going to be a perfect fit either. They'll probably be coming out of a much weaker division, or be a lot younger, or have other issues that might make you a little bit suspicious. It's the kind of thing where you could go and look at somebody like Noah Lang. That would be an interesting kind of move. Like there are always players of this kind that can be found. I still think winger is quite an easy position to recruit for a lower mid-table side, which right now is what Leicester are. Leicester, if we're saying Leeds are in a relegation battle, then Leicester aren't really above it. I think aren't they like 1 or 2 points away from Leeds? I think they're on 18 points.
Yeah, and that's only 3 points.
Out of relegation.
So
I mean, I don't think they're going to get relegated, but they are also not so comfortable that they can just like sit around and wait for the end of the season to come. It would concern me, especially because some of the teams around there as well are better than them. West Ham, for example, are better than them.
I don't know what the contract issue is with Harrison. It's up in 18 months. I don't know why he's not renewed. Marsch wants him to renew. I don't know if it's down to basic salary, and Leicester would be willing to offer more on that front. But they've also, I think, sounded out Fiorentina's Nicolas Gonzalez, right, who's only just returned from injury, put up a really promising first season in Serie A, but they only bought him in 2021 for like 25 million euros.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be cheap. He's only started 2 games, like I said, this campaign owing to injury. So it's not like he's, come in a fine vein of form. So yeah, in my mind, I go to like our previous suggestions of like Benjamin Bourigeaud at Rennes, plays on the right in a 4-4-2 for Rennes right now, who are one of the form sides in Ligue 1, or where at least last time I checked. Not necessarily an out-and-out winger, doesn't add a lot of physicality, but great chance creation. I think he's third for expected assists in Ligue 1 right now, behind Neymar and possibly Messi. So his numbers under the hood really good. I think it would be a hugely ambitious swoop, but only 9-10 starts to his name this season. Herving Lozano, do Napoli upset the apple cart when they're in a title challenge? Probably not. But then if you threw £40 million at them, 35-40 would, I think they'd about it, because they want to buy Unahi as well, don't they? They've got, I think Politano's not necessarily a starter, but can play out there as well. But yeah, there's a dearth of options I think could come in and make an impact right away.
Yeah,
I do like Nicolas Gonzalez though. I think he is a good player. The only thing is he profiles as more of an inside forward type, right? Like the things that, as I recall, always popped in his numbers were touches in the box and shots. So that's okay. That's a perfectly decent profile of player, but he's not going to be a winger who provides for a central forward. He's going to be a winger who cuts inside and tries to get goals of his own. So I think those are just things that you have to think about. Like, is the intention that this guy will be the primary goal scorer or a provider? I don't know. I mean, Jack Harrison at least feels he's a reasonable balance of the two. And he does have the legs to press, which actually is something that has gradually fallen off at Leicester over Rodgers' time there. In the early days, I thought they had a really good concerted defensive press, and then gradually, losing some of the legs in the side, Chilwell, injuries to Pereira, Vardy getting slower, it just felt like more and more it started to fall apart and they became more of a deep block side.
Yeah. Well, it does feel like the emphasis is going to be on goal scoring because he's clearly still doesn't fully trust Daka or Iheanacho to lead the line because Vardy's still getting minutes when he's fit this season.
Yeah.
I think Harvey Barnes is their joint top goal scorer at the moment with James Maddison on 7. Harvey Barnes has 0 assists this season, got 10 last season, did overperform against expected assists, I think by around double, but still that does point towards something's wrong with the alchemy of the forward line. There is no focal point there as well, so that's a problem that he's addressing. But yeah, because of the lack of goal scoring forward, I think he will want to bring in a goal scoring winger rather than an out and out creator. So maybe Porro isn't the main man in that regard, but it's a mess.
Yeah, it's funny because I still don't even think it's the biggest problem, the forward area. I still think a centre-back is more of a priority than a right winger, personally. I think Daniel Amarty's done fine there, and obviously Johnny Evans to come back, but the defence is just an absolute disaster zone back there.
That should be coachable, though. As in, the personnel isn't staggering, but we've seen worse personnel combined to make a decent defence in the Premier League before, and it feels like this is something that I would expect an intelligent coach like Rodgers to be able to work out. We can't just change over the personnel all the time and say eventually we'll hit upon a decent centre back. Some of these centre backs
they lost Fofana. They didn't replace him. They haven't.
They did. They brought in Wout Faes.
Yeah, but he's starting alongside Amarty.
I know, but they did. In theory, what was meant to happen a couple of years ago was that it was going to be Soyuncu plus Fofana.
Yeah, but Soyuncu is going.
Yeah,
that's gone.
But this is an interesting thing about Leicester, and I think this is a lesson that I hope eventually the mid-table Premier League sides learn. And I think we'll talk about it with Everton when we come on to them. Is that for a long time, and I think fans have a role in this as well. These clubs think that the ambitious thing is just to keep hold of their players, come what may. And sometimes when you get an offer for a player, I think you have to have an honest valuation of that player. And if the bid that comes in is bigger than that, you sell them. So I think there was a point where Soyuncu, they probably could have sold him for a lot of money, and I think they should have gone ahead and done it.
Yeah.
Similarly, I think Tielemans they could have got good money for, and when it comes to Everton, they should have sold Anthony Gordon in the summer.
Yeah, although I do think to a level Leicester have sold quite well over the years. You think
not recently?
Fofana 70 million in the summer.
I think that's selling to Todd Bowley is not that difficult. I think I could do that kind of easily.
Maguire, Mahrez. I think they've got big fees.
They didn't get a big fee for Conte. They got a big fee for Mahrez, but that's quite a long time ago now.
Yeah,
I think Chilwell, yeah, sure, Chilwell homegrown, but homegrown very young fullback. Sure,
Yeah.
Fofana is an amazing fee to get. But it's not. I'm not saying they haven't got good fees for those players. I'm saying that some of these players they could have got big fees for, and now will end up going for very, very little. That's the issue.
Obviously, a very different situation versus a mismanaged club like Everton, because they have used the profits of some of the transfers you mentioned to build Seagrave, their new training facility, right? Which was £90 million. So I think Leicester fans expected a certain degree of suffering, but there's not been smaller, smart transfers that could have, I think, picked up performances or addressed some of their issues, happened, side by side with that.
Should we go to the next suggestion then? Done enough on Leicester? This one is sent in by Simon Hansen. He says he's a United fan, and one transfer he would like to see the club make is sign Ryan Gravenberch on loan.
Now, I love him as a player.
Yeah, I made a similar suggestion, or read out a similar suggestion on We Need to Talk last week, or 2 weeks ago now maybe, because I do think Manchester United need another midfielder in there to cover across the second half of the season. I think Christian Eriksen is getting an awful lot of minutes put into those legs. I was surprised to see him start against Forest midweek in the Carabao, has to be said. Does look very leggy at about 50-60 minutes. So I think it wouldn't have been the worst option. Do I think that Bayern are going to let Gravenberch go on loan? Absolutely not. I think he's very solid depth for them. I know he's only played 200 odd minutes of football this season under Nagelsmann, but I have no illusions that they would say no to every loan offer.
One of the interesting things about that, just to open up on the whole possibility of him leaving, is that Nagelsmann has used the triumvirate of Goretzka, Kimmich, and Musiala exclusively this season. Has played 4-2-3-1 exclusively this season. So maybe Gravenberch is looking further on down the line.
Sees Conrad Lima coming in.
Conrad Lima, Sabitz is there as well, and thinks, okay, it's all well and good me, taking 6 months to bed into the side, to adjust to the the culture and demands of Bayern Munich and adhere to the ways of Nagelsmann. But where am I going to get minutes and when?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to back himself, hasn't he? But the arrival of Konrad Laimer from a Leipzig, that Nagelsmann has had massive imprint on over the last few years, and Sabitzer likewise stood at the club. I think it is definitely a problem, and I think he would fit lovely alongside Casemiro. We saw the way that Ten Hag used Edson Alvarez and Gravenberch in that double pivot at Ajax was very, very effective, and I could see him doing a similar sort of role alongside Casemiro. But then you've also got to think United do have Fred in that wants to play in that secondary position. Scott McTominay wants to play in that secondary position, who I think Man United are probably going to have serious conversations about in the summer if bids arrive. But I don't see it being a possibility to take him mid-season, Gravenberch. I think when Laimer arrives and they say, look, your minutes are going to be limited again, we'll look to loan you out this season, then maybe. But it reminds me a little bit of the Ødegaard situation. I don't think he's Ødegaard's calibre of player, because I think Ødegaard has gone on to prove he's maybe one of the best players in the Premier League right now. But I do think that it's maybe wrong player at wrong time at wrong club at Bayern.
There doesn't seem to be a path for him. It is a little bit worrying for him.
I
think
he's not. I don't think he's competing with Laimer at all. Like Laimer is going to be
he's competing with Musiala then.
He's competing with Goretzka. And Goretzka's not going to last forever.
But Goretzka's only 27 and is on a huge contract.
Yeah, but I mean, he's not going to play every minute in every competition. Like you would expect to see Gravenberch kind of come in and take some of those minutes over time. Like I don't think he's never going to compete with Kimmich, right? Because he doesn't have the defensive output. Yeah. And he's never going to. Well, I suppose he has creativity, but Musiala is just so much of an all-round threat. So he wants that progressive role.
But where's
he's
Laimer
a really good
going
fit. He's a really good. Well, he's basically cover for Kimmich, or he allows you to play Kimmich at right back if you ever want to. But what I actually think Gravenberch would be a really interesting Eriksen cover because they're basically good at exactly the same things at this point.
Yeah, progressing the ball very well.
Very low defensive output as well. They can press, but low defensive output. The one X factor here is Ten Hag.
Yeah,
who of course has been so instrumental with Gravenberch's development, I guess. Then maybe he says, "I trust you. We've got a challenging Europa League fixture coming up. Maybe we can find minutes for you."
There's definitely minutes. United play every 3 days for the next month and a half. Like I think there's definitely minutes in this squad for a player like Gravenberch. I just don't think Bayern are going to let him go. I also saw a lot of Liverpool fans, I think it's worth mentioning
I like
here,
that too.
saying about Gravenberch because I think his agent was spotted at Anfield. Very, very speculative because I'm sure she's the agent for about 200 players at this stage. But what do we think about Gravenberch to Liverpool?
It is interesting that you mentioned his defensive output there because part of me does think that now Bayern are in a title race. I think Union Berlin are only 3 points away from them, and there's several teams
Leipzig are only 4 points off them,
nipping at the heels of even Union. I don't see Nagelsmann just throwing him into the mix for the second half of the season. I think he will go with tried and trusted in the form of Goretzka, just because maybe he views Gravenberch as somewhat of a defensive liability at this point in his development. And I think it's quite telling that when they played Inter Milan, Gravenberch started his biggest start of the season and he played him at 10. Not in that double pivot that you mentioned before, where he garnered an awful lot of minutes at Ajax. So I do think he sees him as...
Even then, we saw at the weekend,
maybe a bit sus in that position.
We saw Musiala come off for Müller. Like, there's so much competition in that Bayern squad, even in the 10 rows.
Well, Goretzka came off in the draw with Köln at half-time for Gravenberch. And I think that maybe he'll see that as a bit of a watershed moment for him, because Gravenberch came on, played very well. They got the equaliser in the last minute. And there is a bit of a groundswell of enthusiasm to see him start amongst the fans, which might play a part. Goretzka's been okay this season, but not like irreplaceable. Yeah. So maybe he will get minutes in the next few weeks, and that will sort of turn his head. But it is interesting because they bought him in for 18.5, right? So they could flip him very easily for double that to a Premier League club and get his €150,000 a week wages off the
which is a lot
off the books,
because it's probably double what Musiala.
I think it's probably in their top 10. Yeah.
So it's an interesting shout. Let's go to Spurs next, because Kulu the one, which I presume is about Kulusevski, says he wants to see Spurs go for Skriniar. Now, this one seems pretty unlikely, given he is out of contract in 6 months. The reports online seem to be suggesting that Skriniar has all but agreed a deal with Paris Saint-Germain to go there in the summer, which will be on monster wages and does very much fit into PSG's recent acquisition style of taking players on free transfers with big wages. Does anybody think that Spurs stand a chance of swooping and pinching him off of PSG here, realistically?
Well, the Conte factor would be the only in that scenario, I imagine, right?
I just can't see it happening in a million years. I think this one is a nailed-on PSG move. But what do we think about?
The interest.
Yeah, let's stick with the style, because obviously he's basically saying they need a centre back,
and he's a good rangy centre back. You know, he's decent on the ball. He can cover in wide areas. And the thing I like most about it, which is something we've talked about quite a bit, is it's a signing that even if Conte leaves, the next manager will be fine with them making.
Yeah.
You know, right now they've spent this entire window chasing Pedro Porro from Sporting.
Yeah.
And
let's talk about him.
He's just the most extreme version of a wing back. You know, really good attacking output, but like, you are getting a guy who plays wing back and isn't really a competent fullback.
Yeah.
You are committing to a 3 at the back system with him. That is what you're doing. And it's a signing that kind of feels like we're going to do this in the hope that it kind of convinces Conte that we do back him. I like the player fine. It's a massive return for Sporting on this guy. Having got him off City for, what was it, like 8 or something?
Although I think that City do have 30% sell on. So okay, I think they're basically earning 12 million quid off the back of this transfer.
But I love that means nothing to the buying club now. They're just like, that's 30% more expensive for whoever wants to buy.
Yeah, but because it's a release clause, like, I suppose it's good. It's great money, but
it's a good price, for that.
The one thing I'll say about this move as well is that it's like, I know Sporting have kicked up. Oh, we don't want to let him go. We don't want to let him go. Let's be very real. Sporting are not in a title race, and he can pass. You know, Benfica are 12 points clear at this stage. They're not reining him in.
And Braga in second.
Exactly, they're 4th. So I know that Ruben Amorim is going to say that, oh, we don't want to let him go, but I don't think it's the end of the world. He's put up 11 assists across all competitions.
And rumours that they could get Lamptey. You kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe Lamptey is just cooked, you know, like physically. Yeah. But if he isn't,
I mean, he has spent 250 days out in the last 2 years with hamstring problems. So
I just love him though. He's a guy who you can dream on. Whereas I look at Pedro Porro and I don't think like, oh, this is a potential world beater. I do look at Lamptey and I think fit Lamptey is a game changer. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it'd be a fine signing.
He'll be really good under Conte.
But it is a commitment to a particular system in a way that Skriniar isn't. If you're going to play a back 3, Skriniar is going to be great. Back 4, great. In a pinch, he can cover at right back in a conservative system. Yeah. I like that signing. It's not going to. I don't think it's going to happen unless QSI are really trying to schmooze Tottenham right now, and they say, yeah, we'll let you have this one.
Yeah, I agree. I spoke about the Pedro Porro situation on We Need to Sort this week, and I kind of wholeheartedly agree with that. I think if Conte is not signing a new contract, then it's a totally bizarre move. Because there's no guarantee the next coach, like you said, is going to want to play a back 5. It's a big outlay on a wing back when they've already got 3 at the club in Matt Doherty, Emerson, and Jed Spence. Jed Spence was supposedly bought for the next guy. If it isn't Conte, you know, the whole point of Jed Spence was it's a club signing. Pedro Porro's 23. He's definitely one for the future. It's not like giving him a 30-year-old. I think it's a lot of money, but he will drastically improve Tottenham's right-hand side very quickly. Let's be honest. You know, there's no output coming down that side from Emerson or Matt Doherty right now. Pedro Porro is one of the most exciting right wing backs in world football in that position. I think he will immediately improve Tottenham and will drastically help their top 4 charge. So in the short term, it's an excellent signing.
Do you think Porro improves Tottenham at right wing back more so than Skriniar would replacing Eric Dier at centre back? Do we basically think that Tottenham's focus is on the right player here?
I think so.
If it's on the right player, if Conte is going to be there. But like, again, in the short term, it absolutely is. I think Porro could get Tottenham top 4.
I equally though think that
huge shout.
I equally think though that if Conte doesn't like Jed Spence, but I still think that if he played Jed Spence, they'd probably be a better side. Even if Jed Spence isn't great, and I know a lot of people think he is, but even if he isn't great, I think he would add a different dimension. He would add some pace off the right, and when Kulu comes inside, you would at least have somebody occupying that flank. It doesn't always matter how good that player is. I mean, we've seen Conte win the league win 2 leagues with Moses playing right wing back. So I just think sometimes you need somebody with the right physical tools there, and Jed Spence has those right physical tools. I think the defensive issues at the side run deeper than, maybe our right wing back isn't going to track back. If that's his concern, I think that he has other concerns. I think he's done a bad job coaching that defense as far as Conte's jobs go. They should just use what they've got for a little bit. I don't know.
It's worrisome that Jed Spence is like, Brentford won him. And Brentford never loan a player. Do you know what I mean? Brentford never loan a player. So
the only slither of hope we could probably offer Tottenham fans when it comes to Skriniar is that he wanted parity with Brozovic wages wise, and Inter Milan rejected that. I think that's around £200,000 a week. If PSG weren't in the equation, you'd imagine only a Premier League club could afford to front up when it comes to 200 grand a week. So if negotiations did break down with PSG, it seems like they're probably running pretty smoothly behind the scenes. Then I imagine he would enter to English shores and probably would prove to be an upgrade on Eric Dier, who has been fine under Conte. But it is worth saying that Inter have really ballsed up this situation, haven't they? They tried to sell Skriniar in the summer. They wanted 70 million euros, I think. They upset Skriniar by making him available for sale. He's someone that's shown loyalty to Inter in the past, that clearly loves playing for Inter. And then, so aggravated him. As a result, he wanted more wages. They've not come to an agreement in that sense. So it looks like they're going to let him go for 20 million euros in January because they have to get a fee because, the finances behind the scenes not great. Although Steven Zhang did come out late last year and say that he's not going to sell the club now, right? So I don't know. It's all very muddled. It's a terrible time to be an Inter fan because if they'd sold him, they could have used that money to buy. Who's the kid that ended up going to Juventus, the defender, the Brazilian defender that won Bremer, who won Defender of the Year the season before, and they maybe could have offered Dybala a more lucrative deal. Now they're losing one of their star men for pennies on the dollar, and
well, not even for that. But I mean, he could go for free if he wants to. I think he probably will.
But he's not been great this season. He had a bit of a calamitous season, but maybe the behind-the-scenes stuff is playing a part in that.
But Spurs do need numbers right now as well because there's also the possibility that Kulu and Bentancur could have a ban. Could have a month-long ban. Like that's something that's being spoken about right now. It's certainly happening in Italy, and I know that the FIGC is petitioning UEFA and FIFA to get these bans put out worldwide, which would mean that all the players who were there at Juventus in the 2021 season are going to spend potentially a month on the sidelines.
Before we move on to the next one, we have got some breaking news from behind the camera. Zach Jalab has shown me a note. Arsenal have bid, is it 60 or 80? 60 million. For Caicedo.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Thoughts? Let's wrap to that because it would be a January move.
If they've got that money, then sure, he's great. It's quite an interesting one because what pops in Caicedo's numbers this season, defensive numbers. I mean, his progressive passes are good. I think it's about 4 final third entries a game and 4 progressive passes a game, or 3.4, something like that. But defensive numbers are among the best in the league right now, and we've now got about a season and a half of consistent output from a guy who is 21, which is pretty impressive stuff. He's obviously played in a possession system, so don't mind that. I mean, if it stops you going for a guy you really wanted in the summer, rumours are they wanted Declan Rice.
This is my problem.
If it stops them going for Declan Rice in the summer, then it's an issue, but I don't know if it necessarily does. Because there's not a huge amount of surgery that needs to be done on the squad in the summer. There are definitely sales they can make. They're going to try and move some people on. They could sell Tierney, they could sell Pepe permanently. Cedric's going to be out the door. Like there are these things that are going to lessen the burden on the weight on their kind of black book. So it might be that they can just go and get Caicedo and Rice. It might be.
Do you know what? I said this exact thing on We Need to Talk. I think right now Arsenal should double down and go for the title. So if that means getting Caicedo, absolutely fine. But if Caicedo comes at the cost of Declan Rice in the summer, I think it would be better to go for a slightly cheaper option, more in the £30 million range, and then get Declan Rice in the summer. I do think that Declan Rice is the superior player.
But, okay,
So 60 for
Agreed.
Caicedo.
Yeah,
Well,
but
if
that's
that
going to be
gets-
rejected.
if that gets-
Let's say that's rejected because
Right.
we've already
I
seen Brighton
agree
wanting
with-
80. If you have to go to 80, 90 million for Caicedo, I think it's too much money.
I agree with you, but the difficulty here is you need somebody who can cover Party.
It's difficult
now.
Yeah. I know it's hard.
And if Rice were to come, Rice would be taking the Party role,
Yeah.
not the Xhaka role. So you need someone who can cover Party now and then in the future take Xhaka's role. Well, that's actually quite difficult to do. There are relatively few players. I mean, one of the players, the most obvious player who comes to mind who could potentially do that is Enzo Fernandez. And there's a reason Enzo Fernandez is priced at 120 million euros.
I agree.
So this is a really difficult profile to fill.
I also think, on the subject of profile, Caicedo is more rangy than people probably give him credit for. At the start of the season, he was showing a bit more attacking impetus, driving the ball at the pitch, scored a lovely goal against Leicester at the Ajax. I think under De Zerbi, he's been required to be a bit more rigid with his positioning in that double pivot and have sort of players interchange around him. And then for Ecuador, when he plays Ecuador? Yeah, in a 4-3 in a 4-3-3, he's all action. I actually like Caicedo for Liverpool. I think he'd fix an awful lot of Liverpool's midfield issues right now. So it's surprising that they're not in for him, but they may be saving their money for Bellingham, etc. For Arsenal, I'd never thought about him as a candidate for Arsenal. I've considered him with Chelsea, I've considered him with Liverpool.
Exciting, isn't it?
But it's smart, and clearly if this is a byproduct of missing out on Mudryk, if getting Trossard and Caicedo in instead of Mudryk is a thing that happens, then fair play.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
don't
it's going to be interesting, the fee, though.
But I think they will have the money because obviously they're going to be going back into the Champions League this season.
Yeah.
And the amount of money that's come off the wage bill over the last couple of years
it's crazy.
is crazy.
Yeah.
So I think they probably do have the money to do it.
What's
whether
80 on him
it's-
and 100
it's-
on Rice? Or?
Yeah, well, I don't think you pay 100 for Rice.
Well, 80 and 80 even.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an awful lot of money, but I think it is probably doable because they're not really.
Goodness.
Maybe they say, okay, well, we don't go and get a winger. We stick with the guys we have and Trossard for another year.
I think if you get Caicedo, you're writing off Rice. I don't see.
Really?
Yeah, I don't see a world.
We didn't
in-
spend very much last summer.
I know, but I don't see a world in which that fits. Like, I think Caicedo, Xhaka, Partey for those two roles is really good, but Caicedo, Xhaka, Partey, Rice, maybe one too many men at 160 million pounds.
Maybe, but you've also got to look at the fact that the only area of the pitch where Arsenal are old is central midfield. You know, Partey, we've always said, is going to have to be replaced before too long. Xhaka as well.
But neither of those guys want to do the Xhaka role, do they? Rice or like
Caicedo definitely could.
Do you think he what in the
Xhaka
box? He's played
is
so
only
high this
starting.
season,
He's
though.
only started getting into the box a bit this season, but he still doesn't get into the box. Like his job is really to be on the edge of the box.
Yeah.
What you normally see, you know, you saw this in the Man United game. And in the Spurs game as well. His job is to pick up the positions between the lines and then on the edge of the box keep the ball moving, either to Urgo, who's normally on his right, or to Zinchenko Martinelli on his left. Well, actually, Caicedo, we have seen push up into the box. We've seen Caicedo almost play in a front two at times. I don't know. And Rice certainly has the skill set to play further forward as well. The question is the money. Yeah, but if Arsenal say, right, okay, we're going to go and get Caicedo now because there are no cheap options we like, and we're going to get Rice as well in the summer if we can. And what that means is we don't buy another winger and we just kind of, you know, maybe we can use Jesus there. And obviously we've brought in Trossard. That's going to be our plan for next year. Plus we've got Balogun coming back from loan. Like maybe you just say, okay, we sacrifice a little bit of something there, but you're going to have Champions League football next year to rotate as well.
Also, I feel like one of the things Arteta has done really well is find a role for Xhaka that wherein it plays to his strengths. His role does feel quite specific, highly specified at this point. And that's not to say that they bring in a new player, they can't gravitate away from that. At the moment, it feels like they're maximising Xhaka, but having someone that's a little bit more box to box and a little less entries into the final third might not be to their detriment. I don't think they need to replace his exact profile.
I have to say as well that I think if Caicedo is going to cost 80 million now or 100 million in the summer, and let's just say, for instance, they're not going to get Declan Rice, and they've decided Caicedo is the guy. It's better to go now and pay the extra money and double down for the title charge. Yeah, like eat 20 million and attempt to go for the title, in my opinion. Like,
and there's no guarantee you get Rice in the summer.
Yeah, I agree. Liverpool might want Rice,
but they're not paying. The reason historically you'd avoid moves like this in January is because you'd have to pay a premium, right?
That's a premium. 100 million for Caicedo or whatever it ends up being.
No, but I think that premium just exists all year round now. You're still going to get in the summer.
Oh, yeah.
It's still going to be exactly the same fee. So that's normally the thing that
Can we give the Brighton
you're
recruitment
conservative,
team, though,
yeah,
their flowers again, man? £4.5 million signing.
It hasn't happened. It hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet.
Todd Bowley with the assist, mate.
But he's 20. He's 21 as well. I mean, like, you've got probably 2-3 years before you expect him to be getting into his peak, and he's already good enough to play for a very good Premier League side. That's pretty impressive stuff.
They've already bought in the centre mid from Sweden, haven't they? His name escapes me.
Some guy.
Very young lad that's very, very highly rated from Sweden. They've bought in, and also they've had the bid rejected for. Is it I don't know how to pronounce it. Matianovsky.
Malinovsky from Atalanta.
No, the Shakhtar centre back. That
Matt
Vienko. Yeah, Matt Vienko.
But also they've been trying to get Amadou Haidara.
I know.
You know, like if they could go and get Haidara in the summer for like 30-35 million.
He has a release clause, £33 million in the summer. Haidara.
I love that. I
think
that's great.
I mean, the turnover at Brighton and the exceptional work has been done.
Man, I love Brighton, and I'd love to see Caicedo get a big move. It is a premium, make no mistake, but I don't think it's like. I think it's only probably 20 to 30 mil above his actual market rate, and what we've said all along is Arsenal should pay 20 or 30 million more.
The market is shot to bits. Anthony's gone for 100. Mudrik's gone for 100. The market is absolutely shot to pieces. I mean, everybody's going. It's 70 million for a bog standard player now. So, it is what it is, in my opinion, especially if you have to win the title. We'll fly through a couple more of these then. Newcastle, a centre mid, crying face, says Sean McKenzie. Centre mids for Newcastle, do we think that's the most pressing area?
I included this because I think on Winners and Losers you said that you could see Scott McTominay going to a Newcastle.
Yeah, I think, well, they are interested, aren't they? They're very interested in it. We've seen the reports this week from very reliable journalists saying that they're interested in signing him either now or in the summer. I think Manchester United, given the state of FFP with the club, will be very willing to deal there. And I expect that if they are interested, that move will happen. Like, they've been interested in the past. Do I think he's the most progressive player for Newcastle? No. Do I think he's going to fit Eddie Howe's system that he's playing now very well? Yes. He's going to work extremely hard, just basically Sean Longstaff 2.0, isn't it?
He's better than Longstaff.
He's playing an awful lot of minutes right now. So I think it's fine. But do I think Newcastle can do slightly better? I think yes, effectively. So we'll see what goes on there, but I can see why they need.
This might be one of those things where, like, Arteta, some of the intangibles like we don't really discuss is, you know, when Arteta brings in Zinchenko and brings in Gabriel Jesus, who were deemed surplus to requirements in the summer, no one was putting them forward as like two players that would lead Arsenal to a title charge. I think they bring with them like a certain standard, certain mentality, a certain.
You think that about Scott?
Level of character, and I think maybe like some of the great stuff you get from McTominay, you don't really see in his stats, right? And that's maybe part of Eddie Howe's thinking. Let's bring in a guy who's grown up in this culture of excellence, who's going to do what I say down to the letter. And
well, look at the other player they linked with, was like heavily linked with Conor Gallagher, who like
Anthony Gordon.
Workhorse. Like, and we should talk about Anthony Gordon actually, because it's a lot of money, isn't it? Supposed £40 million bid there. They wanted 60 in the summer.
Did he turn up for training today?
I think today was the first day he's turned up for training.
No tapping on the table, please.
Sorry, after missing 3 consecutive days of training. He has finally shown up now that Dyche has been confirmed as the Everton boss.
You don't miss training when Sean's in charge, do you? Come on.
But again, no numbers really pop for Anthony Gordon outside of his defensive work, do they? So
outside of his potential transfer.
Yeah, Eddie Howe is basically looking for some more dogs to get into the squad, isn't he? I think, and centre mid is obviously somewhere that they are looking to improve.
He can't play centre mid, surely.
Who, Anthony Gordon?
Surely this.
No. Sorry, I'm talking about Scott McTominay.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
Conor Gallagher, dog.
Yeah.
Anthony Gordon's going to play on the left, and to allow.
Well, Willock's has that skill set, and he's been great, hasn't he?
Exactly. I think that's the sort of transfer they're going for at the moment. Touching on a couple more there. Malo Gusto to Chelsea.
I don't know that much about him, but you seemed like, you know, keen. Like this was the right transfer for Chelsea.
His numbers have been insane since he got into the Lyon side, in every regard. I mean, like really, really good all round. I don't know. He has kind of the attacking output of a wing back, but he is a conventional fullback, really. I think as a Reece James understudy, who's going to probably play quite a lot, I think this is a fantastic move. It's even a move that could mean, okay, Reece James can play on the right side of a back three going forward in certain fixtures, if that's what you want to do, which is the kind of thing you'd expect Graham Potter to do.
Yeah.
I love this move. It depends how much you pay, because obviously he is going to be principally a backup.
40 million odd is the reported.
I don't hate it because he's extremely young. Extremely young. I actually think that this is a good all-round move. And right now...
He aligns with what they're doing, doesn't he?
And also right now at Lyon, I think there are lots of interesting players at Lyon, but Lyon are actually crap.
Yeah.
Ninth? I think they're ninth.
Yeah.
And, I would be having a good...
You're going to say Kakare?
Of course I
would. Boy.
But I'd be having a good hard look at Kakare and at Malo Gusto and at Tete. I think that there are lots of interesting guys that... Aouar is somehow still there.
He's out of contract.
I was maybe even thinking of
interesting players to have.
Can be for Leicester. If I
don't hate that either.
They can get him on a cheap.
Aouar for Leicester. These are players who definitely can be had. There's another kid as well
for Newcastle.
There's another centre mid as well. Just breaking through. I can't remember. But Kakare to me is the jewel in the crown. But Malo Gusto profiles about as well as any young fullback in the world.
And it does suit the way that Chelsea are doing business at the moment, which is signing extremely young. Players in every position, so I can see that happening. Although Lyon's president has come out and said it's not going to be happening now. It's going to be happening in the summer potentially. If he is to leave, it will be then. Let's go to the next suggestion then. Ash Young, Forest keeper. He's desperate for a keeper. Obviously, we saw Wayne Hennessy up to his old antics yesterday or midweek against Manchester United with the save in quotation marks that allowed Wout to score his first Manchester United goal. 6'6", well in Wout. Now, they are heavily linked with Keylor Navas. Heavily linked with Keylor Navas. And to have Keylor Navas 1, Dean Henderson 2 in a battle, so of course Dean Henderson's out for 1-2 months. It's ridiculous. English Super League tax, man.
Yeah.
36,
again, Keylor Navas just definitely hasn't been to Nottingham. Don't rush this decision, Keylor. That would be mental depth. They've also been linked with Livakovic, who Dinamo Zagreb want £10 million for. He's on everyone's radar now, post-World Cup, isn't he? I think Villarreal were also interested in Livakovic, a bit of competition for his signature. Now they've got rid of Dan Juma as well. I think they're going to use some of those funds to bring Livakovic in. So maybe he's flown the nest already. But, it feels like overkill, doesn't it?
He's third choice keeper at PSG, though, isn't he? And they're going to let him go this window, so it's either to Nottingham Forest or to Al Sadd.
I'd prefer Livakovic, but you're right. It's not overkill. Navas is fine. He's fine.
On loan. I'm sure they
What's he now? 36, 37?
He's 36.
Right.
He's 36. And, it's Nottingham Forest.
Forest squad is so crazy, given how fucking bad they've been this season.
I know. But they are improving.
Absolutely.
They are improving.
Yeah, I know, but everybody's so desperate to give them credit for improving. But they bought.
I know.
They bought top flight. They bought so many top flight players.
Players
have
been
terrible. It's just, I don't know. A mess, man.
Should we do a quick fire on Sean Dyche, by the way?
Sure.
Any other transfers you want to mention briefly? Because I know we are running short on time. So
I was going to think then. I was just going to say I went to university in Nottingham and I just badmouthed it. Love it. Great university city. But Navas, mature student could do a masters there.
Yeah.
But not a lot else to do.
Let's do one quick fire question then from me. I think we should talk about him. Sean Dyche. It looks like he's been confirmed as the Everton manager, or will shortly be confirmed as the Everton manager. What do we think of Dyche taking over at Everton? Because me and Hamill had this debate on, was it Monday's winners and losers, something like that. So what's your take on Dyche taking over Everton?
I think it's pretty sensible. I think that if they got Bielsa, it would have been nice. I love Bielsa. I think they'd have probably gone down in flames. The squad is horribly set up for him. They'd have had a better chance of coming back up. If they end up going down with Dyche.
Although Dyche has brought teams back up, Burnley back up.
Yes, he has. But come on. The second time, there was a big kind of sliver of variance in there. I don't know. I think that you need somebody who is going to build some sort of connection between the club and the fans. And I think both of those managers have a track record of doing that. I think Dyche the way that Burnley fans would cheer clean sheets, I think is actually something that Everton need. And Everton also just need to be risk averse. This managerial appointment should be less about what is the best this manager can do, and it should be about what's the worst case scenario here. And I think with Dyche, you look at the defensive personnel, and it should be possible for a manager to get a tune out of them. I think the defensive personnel are actually pretty good there. I think that he'll whip them into decent shape, and it's not going to require months of him teaching them a complex pressing system. He's just going to say, this is how we do it. I've got players here that I know in McNeil, in Tarkowski, and Keane. And a lot of players who you could imagine him liking, like, for instance, a fully fit Calvert-Lewin. You got to bear in mind, this is a guy who
Is it possible? Does this exist anymore?
Okay, but this is a guy who got double figures in 4 consecutive seasons out of Chris Wood. You've got to imagine he can get a tune out of a Calvert-Lewin or a Rondon or someone.
What's Goodmanson doing these days?
Well, the thing is, they've kind of got Goodmanson types, right? As in, they've obviously got Dwight McNeil there, but they've got Anthony Gordon. And Demarai Gray is also, what I think he's 7th in the league for attempted crosses per game. They also have some interesting fullback prospects. I don't know. I think it's completely fine. And I think the whole point, Everton basically needs somebody who over the next 3 years can keep this team up on a shoestring while they gradually ship out all their old, overpaid shit players and bring in a bunch of younger players who can actually play a decent style of football, and then they can think about what's next. But the mistake Everton could have made here is to say, let's go and get somebody who seems glamorous, like Frank Lampard. We'll make some signings that seem glamorous, like Hakim Ziyech, and they'd have got relegated.
That's the pitfall I didn't want them to, succumb to. Seeing Newcastle last season, Newcastle in a perilous situation, but hiring a progressive manager and sort of having their cake and eating it. I mean, they did.
Well, they got a bit lucky.
They did put up some spend in January as well. I thought that's what they were trying to replicate with Bielsa. So it's like, no, it's just not. It's not going to happen, or chances are it won't happen. And I think that Dyche is a bit more tactically astute than people give him credit for. This was very much pitched like, Republicans versus liberals, and the red versus blue management decision. But look at the way like Ben Mees adjusted to a different tactical setup at Brentford. He's been great for them this season. Tarkowski's been Everton's standout defender. Like his players, or the the like pillars of his previous side have gone on to do well at other sides.
I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Yeah. Like I think both of them are good appointments. I would have gone Bielsa personally. If I was an Everton fan, I'd be pretty uninspired again.
Good. Uninspired.
Being inspired is a luxury for teams that can afford it. If Everton get relegated, that team is going to explode.
How many times can they put a sticking plaster on it?
That's not a sticking plaster. I'm sorry. I don't think this is a sticking plaster. A sticking plaster is a 25 or 30 million pound player that they can't really afford. A sticking plaster is Frank Lampard, who, don't worry, he can't really coach, but at least he's got vibes. Like, they actually need to get somebody who's has a track record of keeping a team up without spending a lot of money every year.
But they did
those wages in the Championship.
They only had Allardyce for half a season. I mean, they haven't actually done it with anybody else.
They can't gamble with those wages in the Championship either. Then you're asking much bigger questions, aren't you? Like, who is going to buy the club? Can they absorb all of this debt?
I agree, and I think Sean Dyche will keep them up.
Yes.
I think he will keep them up. There's just something about Bielsa I think could have changed a lot more.
I know what angle you were coming at it from. The cultural overhaul.
Yeah, I think it's needed mad.
They need
urgently at Everton. And I don't think
larger than life character to inject some life into it. I get that. But I think Dyche can also be that guy. He's quite culty in his own way.
And if it were the summer, we might agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's by the time this goes out, it's 48 hours until the transfer window closes. Yeah. You can't build a squad for Bielsa on the fly. No. You can't do it.
Yeah, but neither of them have got a proven track record of taking a team over mid-season.
No, but Dyche's system is not going to be particularly hard for a team to learn. I don't think it's like.
But Dyche didn't have to, did he? Because he was at Burnley for how long?
9 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but doesn't I don't think it matters too much.
Yeah, but literally half his team can't run.
I know, but that's you could also caveat that with he hasn't managed outside of Burnley and has no proven track record at any other club.
Sure, but Bielsa might just walk. Bielsa might take over in 2 weeks and just walk.
That is a possibility.
And what we can say is we can look at this squad and say, the one thing that Frank Lampard's done in his managerial career is actually coach a decent press at different points. He did it at Derby, he did it in the early days at Chelsea, and this team still can't press. They're one of the worst pressing sides in the league. But don't worry, we're going to go and get Bielsa who'll fix that. Maybe, I just think half this team can't run. I really think that's an issue. Can you imagine Burnley? You want to see Burnley centre backs playing Bielsa ball? Because I want to see that, but not because I think it will be good.
But I don't think people wouldn't.
It's like I want to see a horse.
People wouldn't have said Liam Cooper is a Bielsa centre back on paper, but he was still an exceptional player in Bielsa's era.
But I said this to you when it's losers, didn't I? That Liam Cooper still needed 3,000 Championship minutes to become the player that we recognise him to be in the Premiership, and that is a luxury that Everton don't have at the moment. It might even have worked pre-World Cup, but they really fucked themselves, didn't they?
They should have made the decision pre-World Cup, shouldn't they?
With making a decision 3 weeks after.
Yeah, either way, Sean Dyche is through the door, so let's see how that one goes. Do we want to do a prediction? Do they stay up under Dyche?
I do not want to do that prediction.
Yes.
I think they do, though. Because I think Southampton, and Bournemouth are certainly far worse.
I think
And then Forest are worse right now. Wolves probably will be worse once Dyche has got a defence working.
we're also a good 2 months after the World Cup.
There are lots of teams in
That's
there.
where I was then.
Yeah,
I think this is classic. Dyche takes them to 17th territory.
I think they might go down and Dyche brings them back up potentially. Wouldn't be beyond the
I think if they
realms
go
of
down, I
possibility.
don't know what happens to that club.
Yeah.
They're in
they'll be
serious.
alright.
Their finances are so fucked, man.
They'll be alright.
Their finances
Yeah,
are so
people said the
fucked.
same about Burnley, and look at Burnley now.
No
at
one said
12
that about
points to
Burnley,
go. They
but-
did. Burnley got a 80 million pound leverage takeover and absolutely mudded. Everything behind the scenes went wrong.
That's not quite the same as Everton, who we don't have any idea if their owner is even rich. They have a bunch of old players on massive Premier
R.I.P.
League
the stadium,
wages.
to be fair.
They're in the stadium is going to be happening. Ooh, Everton. The thing there has to be survival of the club, and everything else is secondary.
Yeah, okay, there we go. That's enough chat about Everton, I think, and transfers for one day. Anything we want to finish with? Do we want to do this personal question? I've read it.
Sure.
I've just read it. Tiger, anaconda, great white, fight one, eat one, keep one.
Fight one, eat one.
Keep one as a pet. And this is from David on the Discord. And if you'd like to
Jesus.
ask David where the that question came from, then
We
click the
can't
link
eat
in
a
the description below.
Can't eat a tiger because they're too rare. So you have to keep the tiger, really.
No, but you can't fight any one of them but the anaconda.
You can't fight any of them. Like, you're going to die either way. So it's
No,
how
could
do you
fight
want to
an
die?
anaconda.
No, if
You will
I
die.
You
get
got a
An
weapon.
anaconda-
You got a weapon.
An anaconda will fucking kill you.
No, you could kill an anaconda.
An anaconda
Alright.
will kill
you
you.
get
so
one
badly.
very basic weapon, land-based or sea-based, harpoon or semi-blunt axe.
Absolutely anaconda.
Yeah,
you
you
can
have
kill
to
a
take-
tiger with a semi-blunt axe.
No, but I think also, but tigers don't tend to attack people who are facing them, right? An anaconda will just eat you.
Pat's
Nah.
taking a flute with him and subduing
I'd
the
have an
tiger.
anaconda.
The thing is, tigers and great white sharks are quite easily like put off, right? They're quite flighty. But I'm assuming that you're just locked in an arena.
Yeah,
and there's
this
no
is
escape.
1v1.
This is an easy choice here. You definitely end up fighting the anaconda, keeping the tiger as a pet, and you have to eat
What
the
do you mean?
shark.
How do you maintain the tiger as a pet?
Very easily. Hundreds of people do across the American landscape, don't they? I do
Yeah,
not watch
they
Tiger
are.
King.
They are loons.
Just get a big
All
enough
right.
cage and whack it in.
Are we
But the
giving,
thing is
okay,
that-
so we're giving the infrastructure for that.
But these are
Fine,
all
fine.
like threatened animals. You know, like I don't want to kill a great white
Is a
shark.
great
I
white
love a great
threatened?
white shark. Yeah,
I
they're
hope
not
PETA aren't
like
watching
they're not
this.
significantly
Well, it's
endangered,
already
but
dead.
they
Let's
do
say it's
they are
already
at
dead.
significant risk.
I mean, eating a great white shark is just a fish, isn't it?
You can
Probably
eat a
tastes
snake though.
Imagine that'd be quite tough.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, you
Snake
can't-
is eaten a lot. of
And I'm not
places.
getting in a water.
I feel like
I'm
ti-
not getting in a water battle with a great white shark.
Yeah,
A
I know,
water
that's
battle.
Yeah, but you're going to be in a water battle with the anaconda, probably.
No, that's got to be dry land.
Why?
Surely. Semi-water.
No,
semi-land.
that could be like swampland.
Then I'm
That's
dead.
you're
I'll have the
dead.
anaconda all day.
The anaconda will fuck
No,
you.
I'll kill
if-
an
I can't
anaconda.
believe you think you can
How
fight
thick?
an anaconda.
How
You're
thick
so
is an
stupid.
anaconda's neck?
I've got a blunt instrument. You said I've got an
Yeah.
axe.
It doesn't matter. It just
I'm
doesn't
with
matter.
you. I'm
Oh
taking
my
the
God, they're
anaconda.
so fast.
Unless there's like
Well, so you think you could kill a tiger?
I don't think I could kill any of
We've
them.
got to make a decision.
I'm
There's a
gonna
gun to your
die.
head.
I'm
There's a
gonna
gun to your
die
head.
against all
Make
of
the
them.
decision.
If there's
It's
a gun
how
to your
I
head,
want to
I'm
die.
I'm
It's
asking
how I
to
want to
borrow
die.
that gun,
It's
yeah.
going to be the anaconda.
Exactly.
I'm going to fight the anaconda.
Exactly. And you're going to kill that anaconda.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to kill the anaconda.
100%.
The anaconda's going to crush me to death.
I've watched so many videos of people killing anacondas.
What do you mean?
No, you haven't.
Yes, I have. Them
Oh my
dragging
God.
them out of swamps, putting them on diggers and all sorts.
Right.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Have you never watched these videos of
No.
like the super long
Yeah,
anacondas?
They
getting
don't tend
pulled
to be
out of a-
anacondas. Those tend to be like pythons, and they're different things. Just to be
They're
clear.
very sort of similar, though, aren't they?
Yeah, but what they actually tend to do is trap them and then kill
Exactly.
them.
That's
So
what
you're
I would
gonna
do.
build a
I'd
trap?
lure it and kill it. I'd pump fake it into a movement, and then I'd just bang. You never watched?
Mate.
Have you never watched Harry Potter?
Have you
I'll
never
take a
watched
samurai
Anaconda?
sword. I'll
You never
take a
watched
samurai
Anaconda, the
sword.
film Anaconda? That's not an anaconda. It's
Joe's-
just a snake.
Joe's taking Godric Gryffindor's sword.
Yeah. Bang. There goes the head. Perfect.
I've got to say, it would be funny to watch you like holding a blunt hatchet as you get squeezed so hard you turn into a fucking frog. Like it's just you're going to be like
It's
a
such waffle,
little
man.
tube of liquid,
could kill an
ginger
anaconda.
liquid.
Morally, you can't be eating a tiger.
No, I agree,
No.
mate.
Magnificent creatures.
But great white.
So great whites, so anacondas,
Nah. Is an anaconda a magnificent creature? It's a
Nana-
snake, mate.
mate. It's the largest snake. It's not the longest snake, but it's the largest snake on earth.
It's
yeah,
still a
it's pretty
snake.
cool.
A great white.
Fine.
Great whites, yeah. I mean, well, a lot of the time they attack humans, it's misidentification, isn't it? So maybe I'll try and get pally with it, and
No,
then bang in its eye.
But I assume that's not a factor here. I assume that like here, it's like you've somehow let them know. Dr. Dolittle style,
Yeah, you
but
can't
it's a
have
fight
battle.
to the death.
Right, okay.
They can't just fuck off. You can't just be like, make yourself big in the Great
the
White
Great
Shark
White, you're
site.
dropped into a
Should
Right,
we
right,
should
right,
we
right.
just fuck off then?
Yeah, I think that should be it. Anyway, that's it for this week's episode of Sunday Vibes. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Oh god.